Welcome back. Today I'm going to try to solve some puzzles on chess.com as part of my ongoing quest to get better at chess. If you're new here, I'm not a titled player, I am not a chess coach or an expert of any kind. I'm just a random person trying to get better at chess. So if you're looking for a channel where somebody can teach you something based on their vast knowledge and experience, look for a channel where somebody is a titled player. I just have a puzzle rating of 1937. My rapid rating, as you saw on the opening screen, is around 1200. I will talk through my thought processes as I try to solve these puzzles. For example, first thing we look for is checks, captures, and threats. I have a couple of checks in this position. For example, I could check here with my queen. That would be protected by my rook, and that would force the king to go back. And then I would not have checkmate on the back rank with my rook because their rook is guarding that square. Other checks I have are this one, but I think those are just as bad. Either the rook or the king could capture there, and of course the king could capture here. Are those my only checks? No, there's another check here, but their queen is guarding that square. So of the checks, it does look like this one is the best. I would not lose a queen over it. The king, as I said, would be forced to the back rank. But then I'm not sure what the follow-up would be at that point. I wouldn't be able to return here to check again because that square is unprotected. The king could just capture me. And again, if I went back with my rook, they could take with their rook. So I don't think I would do that. So it might not be a check. It isn't always a check. The next thing I look for is captures. For example, there's a capture here with my queen, but that looks like their queen would just recapture me. And then what would I have at that point? You know what? There's another check that I didn't see earlier. There's this check. Rook to h6. They wouldn't be able to capture with the pawn because the pawn is pinned right now. But they would be able to capture with the king. In fact, I think that would be forced because they can't come back here. My queen is guarding g8. So I think they would be forced to capture my rook. What follow-up checks do I have? Not much. I wouldn't have I mean, this pawn would be protected. That pawn would be protected. One thing I thought of here is that there would be a discovered attack on their queen. So once they took back my rook, then I could take their queen, but their queen's defended by the bishop. So in that case, I would have just lost a rook for a bishop. No, I would have lost a rook and a queen for a queen. So that's not good. They would still have a bishop and two rooks for my rook. I also have this check here, which I just saw, but of course I think they would just capture with their queen at that point. So I don't think that's it. I've already been on this 5 minutes and I don't see anything. I'm going to pause and just keep looking at this for a little while. I don't want to waste any more of your time. Okay, I did pause for a couple of minutes and I've gone back to this first check. That looks like the only safe check in this position, and it is very forcing because it forces the king to the back rank. Now earlier after that, I was looking for a follow-up check and I don't think I have one, but I have, I think, a follow-up threat at that point. I could drop this rook back here to e7, and with my queen on g6, and my rook on e7, both of them would be pointed at this pawn. So I would be threatening checkmate at that point. None of their pieces are pointed at e7. None of their pieces are pointed at g7. So how could they stop mate at that point? They could move their queen over to e5, which would point at g7. But if they did that, my rook down here would be able to capture their queen. They could also bring their queen in here to f7. But again, my rook could just capture their queen at that point. Okay, so maybe that's it. Maybe it's the threat of mate. After this check, and the king is forced back, and I drop my rook to e7. I don't see how they could stop mate at that point. This rook over... Oh, you know what? This rook could move up to stop it at that point. Oh, but if the rook did that... No, I couldn't check here because their queen would be guarding that square. Okay, maybe that's their defense then. Okay, well, I'm stuck again. I might fail this puzzle. I really don't see anything else. My other rook back here isn't able to join the fight, I don't think. If I move it over, which I could do, to line up with the other rook, where are they going? It's not helping anything at this point because of where their king is. Moving my f rook over here to help out to the e file doesn't help anything. I definitely don't want to move this pawn, bring it up to help because of the battery that they have lined up. That would be checkmate. On my end, I've spent 9 minutes on this. I have to make a move. I'm going to play queen to g6. If that's wrong, we'll go to the analysis board and figure out what we should have played instead. Oh, okay. Well, it was correct, but we still don't know what the next move is. Well, what if I go back to my original plan of playing rook to e7, which threatens mate here? I think the only way, we figured out the only way they could get out of that is to play rook to h7. Then I line up the f pawn on the e file, which threatens mate here, and I don't know how they can get out of that. But I don't know if it matters what order I play those two moves in. The F rook to E1 or the rook that's already on the E file to E7. I think those are the next two moves that I have to make. I just don't know what order I need to put them in. But let's say I do play the F rook to E7. Sorry, the F rook to E1. Then I'm not threatening mate on the next turn, because that's not mate. They would have to take, but then my other rook would follow, and I think that would be mate. So if I move the F rook over first, that threatens mate in too, but it gives them a chance to do something first. What would they do? I think they would drop their queen down. I think they would have to drop their queen down so that they would have two pieces, guarding E8 at that point. But I would have three pieces hitting there. Well, not after I played the rook. But I would still have two pieces hitting there. So I think I would come out ahead. But this way threatens mate now. So which is it? I can't decide which is best other than this one threatens mate now, so I'm going to play E7 first. If that's wrong, I'm going to guess that it was F to E1. Okay. Wow, and it keeps going. Well, it's got to be the other rook over, correct? Because I can't mate here. Their queen's guarding that square, so I don't want to put my queen on F7. I don't want to take that rook now because I lose my queen for that. If I check here now, wait, that might be it. Okay, now that this rook is out of the way and where their king is, now if I check here and they take and my queen takes, that's checkmate. See, before it didn't work. If I had played that first and they had taken, their H rook was still back on H8, and then when I took back with my queen, the king had an escape route. But now it doesn't. So I check. Only thing they can do at that point is to take with the rook, and then I think that's checkmate. Well, it took 13 minutes on my end. I don't know how long I will have edited. Hopefully I will have edited that down to a much shorter amount on your end. But the reason I couldn't see that at first is because the rook was originally on H8, and it looked like once I brought my queen down, the king would have an escape route. But I had to see that once this rook was up, the king did not have an escape route. The themes here are back rank, basic checkmates. That was basic. It seemed pretty complicated to me. But maybe it is a basic checkmate. Maybe that's why my rapid rating is as low as it is. Next. That one was really tough. I feel like it took a lot out of me. I only have one check in this position, right? No, I have two checks in this position. So check with my bishop over here on A2. I think that's bad. I think their king could just take or just move out of check. And I have this check with the rook down to D1. In that case, my bishop, which hasn't yet moved over here to A2, is guarding A2, so the king would not be able to escape. And of course, the king couldn't go left or right because of where my rook is. So I think they would be forced to take with their knight. And then I'm not sure what I would have at that point. I guess I could move my other rook back over, threatening the knight that's down there, but then they could just put the knight back. I think they might have to put the knight back because I would be threatening mate at that point. But then once they put the knight back, then I don't think I would have a threat. I think the obvious capture involved here is queen capturing the queen. In that case, the opponent would take back the pawn, I assume. Now, once they did that, I assume that's what they would do. I mean, they could always throw in a check first. And if they did, then I would take back, and then they would take my queen. I don't think it would matter what order those moves were played in from their perspective or mine. But if I took this and then they took back, and then I checked down here, again, they would take with their knight. If I moved my other rook over to threaten a mate, they could just block with their knight again. So I don't think it matters what order those moves are played in. It doesn't appear to matter, but maybe there's something else. When their queen was down here and moved over here, should that have been a signal to me that something was... Well, just like the last one, I have a feeling that I might fail this puzzle, but I get that feeling a lot and then I don't always fail, so I really don't know. But I do know that my queen is hanging right now. So their queen move drew attention to the fact that I could move my queen. I don't have to because I can check first. So should I check first and then take their queen? Let's follow that. Check. Only legal move is for them to take with the knight. That's one reason to play it in that order instead of the other order. Because as I said, in this order, they don't have to take back immediately. They could check first, and then after I take back, then they could take back with their pawn. But this way, they have to take back the rook first. Then I could take their queen. And then when they take with their pawn, I move my other rook over, threatening checkmate. They could solve that a couple of ways. One way they could solve it is by getting their bishop out of the way of their other rook. They could solve that by getting the knight back out of there. Then I could hop this knight in here, threatening a fork down there. Unless they had played this, then I couldn't do that, so then I'm not sure what I would do at that point. Maybe it'll look different to me after I take the rook, but I'm convinced that that's my first move just because it is, I think, the most forcing of all of my options. I'm going to check first. That was right. And then, again, my queen is hanging. So if I just throw my... But if I throw my rook over here, they're not going to take my queen. I know that. If I put my rook on d8, they won't take my queen because that would be mate when I capture down there. So that is a mate threat. It is a forcing move. They have to protect this square somehow. The obvious way to protect it is to pull the knight out. One obvious way to protect it. Another way to protect it would be to move this bishop to one of those two squares so that the rook points over here. Is there any other way they could protect that square? I guess they could put the queen over, but I would take it. So if I play this, and the opponent does play one of the obvious moves to protect this square, either getting the knight out of there or pulling the bishop up, then I take their queen. We would still be even on material after they took back, right? I'm going to take the queen, or should I move the queen? That's another option, isn't it? Or should I move where could I move the queen? For example, I could move the queen to d5, which threatens a mate because of the bishop. But they could stop that by pulling the knight back, because that knight would guard that square and it would be threatening my queen where it is. Okay, so that's not a good move. That takes me back to this move, but that also results in them moving the knight, I think. But it doesn't look like it makes that much of a difference to take the queen first. Wait, I think it is this move. I just thought of this, because they bring the knight back to guard against checkmate. Well, actually, that wouldn't be checkmate, would it? No, that's not mate, because their king could always move over. Okay, but I still think that if I played queen to d5, I think they would bring their knight back to threaten my queen and guard against a queen infiltration down here on a2, and their rook is hanging. That's a fork. I'm going to try it. Okay, they didn't play what I expected them to play. I do get what this does. It protects this and keeps me from getting there, because it looked like I was... Oh, that's what it was. I was threatening mate there plus here. That's why didn't they move the knight then? Because this doesn't protect the rook. This way I win a rook. Do I not? Wow, that took way too long. This is really hard. Okay, well, those two were both exhausting, but I have several minutes left on my end. I try to limit these to 30 minutes because after that point, my brain starts to break down. I have to do something different. So let's go on to the next one. I realize this is only my third one. Usually I get 7 to 10 in this amount of time. Okay, I am playing with the black pieces. I'm down a bishop, looks like. Let's look for checks first. I do have a check. That would force the king to one of those two squares, I think. Either way, I would have a follow-up with the rook, right? They wouldn't block with the rook because I would just take it. So I assume they would get out of check one of those two ways. They got out of check to the back rank. I could drop the rook down and check them from g1, but then they could just come up here. So let's assume they would have gone there in the first place. Queen to f4 check. King goes to e2. Then I have two choices. I can take the pawn with check, and they escape this way. Or I could check with the rook on g2, but again, they can escape up here into the middle, into d3. But if they went to d3 and my rook was there and my queen was here, then I could check back here with my rook. It would have to come out this way, and the bishop would be... Oh, then I could take the bishop, okay. Whichever way they got out of check there, I would take the bishop. Maybe that's the answer here. The bishop's undefended. I mean, the rook's undefended too, but it's a little harder to get to, I think. Check. I mean, that's technically a fork on the rook. That's another reason why they would come up to e2. Okay, I didn't think about that earlier. If they went to e1, I would just take the rook with check. Okay, so yeah, they would go to e2 to protect the rook, but then I would check with the rook on g2, and I don't think at that point they would try to go to the back rank, because again, I could take the rook and possibly take it with check, or I could also go to the back rank. So I think if I check here, they come here, I check with the rook, they come up here, then I check on the back rank. They wouldn't block with the rook because my rook would also be guarding that square and I could take it. So they would move and I would win the bishop. I think that's the answer to this one. Okay, we're correct so far. But now the question is again, do we check here or do we check here? Queen to h2 captures the pawn, or rook to g2 check? I think the rook makes a lot more sense because again, if they drop back, we take the rook with check. They can't come over here because of the queen. So their choices would be limited to those three squares. If they went to either one of the d squares, we check down here. No, we don't check down there if they went to d1. Okay, that's bad. But if they go to either one of those, we can take the rook and then we're up on material. And yes, they can check us. We can escape that check. Okay, so I'm going to check with the rook to g2 and hopefully that is correct. It was. Oh, they did go to the bottom. Okay, well, we definitely don't want to do what I said, which is get checked, get captured by the bishop. We can take the rook now, but that's not a check. We can also check again with the rook. Does that force them back up here? That's the question. Do we check with our rook or do we take their rook? Checking with our rook is more forcing. Because if we take their rook, they can do all sorts of things because they're not in check. If we check with the rook, that leaves them two options. They can go to e2, d2, or c2. Now, if they go to c2, we can take the rook, again, which we could do now. If they go to one of the others, well, if they go to e2, then we could check them here. And then when they moved over, we'd have mate, right? Check here, and that would be checkmate on d1. So what if they could go to d2, and then we're going to end up repeating, I think. Okay, so I think I take the rook. Oh my goodness. Well, I got that a little faster than I got the first two, but yeah, those were difficult. And this one doesn't have a theme. I assume if I go to the analysis board now that it will say that their next move is here. Let's go to the end. We figured out that much. We do have a huge advantage, but yeah, I knew this was going to be their best move, and it makes a huge difference which one of those squares we go to. To keep our lead, we have to go to g6, not f6, really. Because on f6, they can check us again and force a queen trade, maybe? No, because on f6, they can check us again here. That's what it says that they would do. They would check us on d8. But if we go to g6, the only way they can check us again is g3, and it says that's what they would do. I mean, they can also check here, and it says that's their second best move. Really? What if they didn't check again? Oh, because we're threatening mate. Okay, we're threatening mate here. That's what I didn't see. Well, that's a little wild that I only got 3 puzzles in this video. But my 30 minutes are up. That first one took forever. The second one took quite a while as well. Thank you for spending your time here, and I'll see you next time.